Hello, my name is Xonevant, and today we're going to be continuing my behind the scenes look at how I create the daily dose. We're going to be talking about After Effects right here on episode 49. Alright guys, so if you've been following this mini-series, you know that we've already talked about how I do all my commentaries, how I capture gameplay footage and things of that nature. But today we're going to talk about how I create my graphics. These are the meat and potatoes of my channel. It's something that I do that's pretty unique. Now granted, there are other channels out there that have overlays, but most of the time they're just still images. What I try to do with my overlays is create motion. And I also try to make my graphics, kind of appeal to the game that I'm playing, or, have some type of scheme to them. I remember when I did my Darksiders 2 videos a while back, it had death was over there on the left and it was set in some type of cave. I went over this in the overview of this mini series and I showed that off in case you're new to the channel. So I try to have all of my all of my graphics kind of go along with the video, the game that I'm playing. And that's what makes my channel a bit unique. Now, a lot of people think that I use Photoshop to create some of these visuals, but that's actually not true. Believe it or not, I've actually never used Photoshop on any of my videos, and I made over 1,500 videos. I've never used any Photoshop file for any of my work. I actually use a program called After Effects. Let's go ahead and open that up and get into how I create, or how I use this particular software to create the daily dose. So this is probably going to be the longest video in this mini series. I'm not sure how long the Sony Vegas one's going to be, but this is probably going to be quite lengthy. So hopefully I can get it taken care of within an hour. But I really want to spend some time here because a lot of you guys are interested in this program, and I get this question a lot. So we're going to take some time here and go through things. Let's go ahead up here to File. And just like we always do, we're going to go ahead and mess around with a couple of things here. The first thing is our project settings. You can see here we have our media source. This is all by default, our time code, 8 bits per channel. You can set all that stuff right here. The main thing is your sample rate. If you're going to be putting audio inside of your projects, I try to make sure that's 48,000 hertz, just like it was in Audacity. That way you never have an issue with the audio being out of sync with the video. So just wanted to kind of point that out. Let's go ahead and press OK. Now, just like I was telling you in previous videos, the next thing you want to do is make sure that you go into your preferences and set everything up the way that you want it to be, so that every single time you hop into After Effects, you're getting the same result. So we're just going to scroll over here to Edit and click on Preferences and just go to General. This is going to pull up a huge window. Most of this stuff, again, is going to be, by default. So I'm just going to kind of skip through until we find one that needs our attention, if you will. Display. All that is the same. Default. We're gonna get into this in just a second. We'll go over this right quick. This is your media and disk cache. This is very similar to in Audacity, right? When you're working on projects, everything kind of gets saved out into a temp folder. So you just want to make sure that you have that labeled and you know where that folder is, because periodically you are going to want to purge that folder because it will be taking up your hard drive space. You can see right here that you actually have a button called Empty Disk Cache, and then it says here, for improved performance, choose a disk cache folder on a fast hard drive or SSD separate from your footage, and allocate as much space as possible, which is what I've done. Mine is actually on my C drive, which is my SSD, and that is separate from my F drive, which is where all of my images and videos and stuff like that are stored. You can see here that I have a 11 gig limit, and that means obviously that I can store 11 gig of temp files, which is not a lot when you're factoring in what I'm doing in After Effects for, the videos that I create. But 11 gig, it's enough to get me usually through the month, and I've never had an issue with it, needing to be more than 11 gig. So I just roughly do 11 gig, but depending on your projects, you can allocate more space for that. Just depends on what you're working on. All right, then you have your video preview. That's by default. Appearance, by default. Now, let's talk about auto-saving. So just like with any other program, guys, there's an auto-save feature typically built in the software where it will automatically save your project every so often, right? A time of your choosing. And you can see right here that I've got mine set up for 10 minutes. and I've got it to, you know, set up to save a maximum number of projects. I think that's 668, just a ridiculous high amount. And that's because I work in very long sessions, especially when I'm building a graphics package for the first time. A lot of you guys may have seen that 2 Pro for You Games video that I did the other day. It was a time-lapse video that took about 3 to 4 hours, and I was saving every 10 minutes, because the last thing you want, man, is to go for like 30 minutes to an hour, which 30 minutes to an hour in After Effects years, quote unquote, is, you know, you can get a lot of stuff done in 30 minutes to an hour. And sometimes it's meticulous moving of things and trying to get text right and all that kind of stuff. And if you're, you know, like if you have a power surge, or maybe the software just crashes or something happens, it is gone, man. And it's not like recovering a Word document, you know, where you can be like, I can just write that paragraph over again. It won't take me just a second. No, man. And it's very hard to produce art twice. You see what I'm saying? It's very hard to produce visuals twice. And so you have to make sure that you're backing up your projects if you decide to work with this type of program. I have mine set every 10 minutes, and I'll be honest with you, that is perfect, because there have been times where, you know, I'll be working on a project and in less than 10 minutes my computer will crash or something will happen. It always does. Technology hates me. You guys know that. So, you know, I just make sure that mine's saving every 10 minutes and I'm good to go. That way, something happens, I can go back, go to that folder where I have all my stuff saving to, and just be like, you know what, let me just pick it where I left off. No harm, no foul. Now, obviously, the more gig that I have to give to After Effects, you know, the better it's going to be for my RAM previews, which we'll get into that in a second, and things of that nature. You know, the program's just going to be a whole lot smoother, the rendering is going to be a whole lot quicker, and things of that nature. And then you get into the multi-processing part. I just have both of these checked, and then this is just basically referring to your processor cores, which I have 4, and I just picked 2 from my other applications, leaving me 2 for this one. And then RAM allocation per background CPU, I have it maxed at 6 gig. That just helps out with a lot of background processes going on within the software. So that pretty much takes care of memory and multiprocessing. You can play with that if you have this program, depending on your computer specs. You know, that'll determine what you need to set all of these different factors on for you. Then you have your audio hardware, which you can select. I think mine's only After Effects WDM sound, which is by default, because I really don't do a lot of audio in this program. I do everything in Vegas, so very rarely will I ever have to use playback in this program for sound. And you have your audio output mapping. This just tells you where it's going to go if you decide to play it back. You can see here that normally I have my headset on when I'm doing work, so everything is going through my Turtle Beach. And then your sync settings, all of this is default. Let's go and press OK. Now, typically I will work in a workspace called minimal. Sometimes it'll be standard, it just depends. Minimal just gives me the most viewing area for my my panel right here, if you will. You know, it gives me the most viewing space, and I like that. Now, typically when I'll start a project, I will probably be on something like all panels, just because I'm going to be pulling in a lot of footage and moving and shaking stuff around. But because I have this template ready to go and I know what needs to be changed, there's not really anything that I'm going to do with effects or anything like that. Then I tend to just go with minimal so that I can have the best viewing area possible. And the last thing is your workflow. Now, workflow is, I'm telling you, man, workflow is your biggest time saver when it comes to dealing with programs like this. And it all starts right here. This is your source panel. This tells you all the footage that you've used. You can see that mine is very organized. I have elements, which is basically everything that comprises the daily dose. And I have my comps, which this is all the comps that I've had to create to be able to pull this show off. It's a ton of comps. Each one of these kind of represents a different part of the particular graphics package, if you will. Then you have your images, you have your miscellaneous, just some random stuff. Solids, which is like you see this blue solid right here, and then videos. So these are all the videos that I've used. Some of these obviously need to be deleted and they're repeats. That's just because I don't purge, but maybe like once a month. But this gives you an idea. You always want to keep this stuff organized as possible. You can also give them colors, so that if you pull in a video, let's say you have a video and it's yellow, if you pull that video in, it'll give you a yellow source color here as well. So that can be kind of a visual reference to what you're using, because sometimes your workspace can get really cluttered, but having those visual cues helps you out. All right, so let's go ahead and minimize this, and we're gonna get into kind of my process, and I'm gonna go ahead and delete this render queue because that'll show up at the end. That does not need to be there. And we're gonna talk about this source color right quick. So every day when I sit down to create a daily dose, the first thing I do is I wanna think about a color theme that I feel like is gonna carry the show. And what I mean by that is if you go back and you watch episode 1 of this year's daily dose, I played the game Infamous. So I think I picked either yellow or orange, and that was the color scheme throughout the entire video, right? And it kind of lended itself to the game that I was playing. Now sometimes the color I pick will lend itself to the topic that I'm discussing, but I want you, while you're watching the video, to be sold on that color, and I want you to be thinking about that color when you think about the topic, right? Because visuals are, I don't know, they have a way of sticking with you. It's kind of like music. And so I want the colors to impact you, and I try to make them like a character in the video. Now the cool thing about After Effects is it will allow you to assign a color to an entire project as long as you link things up. And that's why this is called source color, because I know that I'm doing the behind the scenes, and blue obviously is the color that we're going to be working with for this mini series. Then I want blue to carry itself throughout the entire project. And so what it allows me to do is it allows me to assign a source color, which I have here. And then you can see right here, there is a way to assign an expression. You see right here where it says an expression. And then this is basically like a little algorithm for telling this project, hey, this particular layer, which is my source color right here, this is gonna be the source color for the entire project. And then what that allows me to do is it allows me to leech off of this source color for the entire project. So like if we come over here to thumbnail, obviously this is my thumbnail. We'll get into this in just a second, but you can see that it is blue. It is the same color as this. And that's because if you scroll down to right here where it's got all this another expression, you can see that it's blue, and you can see all this stuff. And we're not gonna get into what that means, guys, but this is an expression that I can write out that says, hey, whatever this color is, right, assign it to this layer as well. You see what I'm getting at? And I may even show you guys that when we get into some of this. We'll see how it plays out, but you get my point. That way I don't have to go in and change each thing in the project that I want to become that blue color. I don't have to do it individually. I can set it up one time, change one color, and then have it flow down throughout the rest of the project. So here's a quick example. I will show you this too. I'm again double click this, pull up my color palette, and I'm just gonna change it to something that we can definitely tell the difference on. We'll change it to a really, really bright red because I'm playing Bloodborne, so blood red. And then you'll see that bam, it also changed it to kind of that red orange color right there. And then if we keep going down, boom, it changed it there. You see, and it changed it there. And so instead of me having to go through and change all that text, it just does it for me in one fell swoop, which is really cool. And then obviously I can hit Control Z and take it back to where it was, so I never lose that particular color. And there are tons of expressions you can apply to various projects, and I'll get into that too maybe in another tutorial a little bit later on, but that gives you the gist. So the first thing I do is think of a color. Obviously I know that the color I'm using for this mini series is this nice blue, so I don't really have to change anything, but if I did, you got to see how that kind of played out. And then let's go and get into the thumbnail. Now if you look right here, it looks like there's only 3 layers that I'm working with, and to a degree that's true, because these 3 layers are the only thing that are relevant to the thumbnail at this particular time. But if I click on this shy guy right here, you can see that there's actually more layers going on right here. You see what I'm saying? But what I normally do is after I've created a composition, which this is a composition, this is a composition, this is a composition, all these different tabs you see represent different compositions, which kind of go back to what these are, right? These are all comps. And then they're just displayed down here as well. Each time I work inside of one of these compositions and I'm done with it, like I say, hey, this is perfect, this is the thumbnail that I want, then I'm allowed to minimize anything that I don't have to change each time I work in that composition. And the way that I do that is with this little Shy Guy tab right here. So let me go ahead and click it, and you can see this is all the stuff that I'm working with. And you can see that right here is the little Shy Guy again. And if I unclick everything, which I will do, and then I click on the Shy Guy, I think I might have missed one. There it goes. Then nothing happens. That's because nothing is selected. But if I go, hey, I don't really need this layer anymore. I don't need this layer or this one or this one or that one, you know, or that one or that one or that one or that one, then I can just simply get rid of them. You see what I'm saying? And it'll basically allow me to only see what I'm going to be editing each and every time. Let's go ahead and get rid of that and bring that back in. And that way I'm left with the number that I'm changing. And this hue color, basically, like if I scroll down and hit T, I can bring up the opacity. And this just allows me to, you know, darken the image or lighten the image based on, you know, the visual look that I'm trying to get. Right now, I'm just leaving it at 0. And then obviously this last one is the image itself. Now, obviously, we're talking about behind the scenes, so I kind of have this image I just downloaded off of Google where it looks like this dude is kind of behind the scenes checking out some stuff. So I try to have an image back there that represents whatever it is that I'm talking about. And that way, when the thumbnail comes up for you guys, it kind of correlates with the title. And obviously, the episode number is important too. So let's go ahead and switch that. We're going to double click and we're going to hit 049, episode 49. You can see that there's a little white shadow back there. I had that also ready to, just like we did with that expression with the color, the shadow is also connected to this 002 layer right here, which is my source text. And so I could change this number to, you know, let's just change it to 100,000, right? And the shadow will automatically go behind the 100,000. I could change it to anything. And again, it's just an expression that I have applied to it so that it automatically fixes it for me. Let's go ahead and make it 049. Click away, and there's my shadow. Everything looks good. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit composition, save as a file, and go to custom and go to the JPEG and hit OK. And then I'm going to again pick the file that I want this to be saved in. So this is episode 49. We're going to create a new folder and we're going to call this 49 and click away, click on, and then we're just going to save this as thumbnail. Now, granted, I'm not actually rendering it out right now. The way that this works is I will typically go through my entire project, get everything ready to render, and then when I have all my files ready, I will click render, and it takes about 10 to 20 minutes and I'm done. So typically I will do this before I take a shower. That's typically how this works. I'll do a daily dose, get everything ready to render, and then go hit the shower. By the time I get out, boom, it's ready to go. So now that we have that loaded up in the render queue, we're gonna come back and go to episode number. You can see right there, episode 48, and we're gonna do episode 49. So that takes care of that. You can see there's the daily dose, got the color and everything. Then we're gonna go to show type text. All right, so this is my title slide. So you see I have a tutorial, behind the scenes look at the daily dose, and then episode. Obviously we need to change that to episode number 4. And we're gonna change this to After Effects. And I apologize if you hear something weird every time I type. That's because my microphone is sitting on the same foundation, if you will, as my keyboard. So you might hear some crazy stuff when I'm typing, guys. I apologize for that. I am looking into getting a mic stand soon, which will eliminate that. But I did want to point this out too, that I have a layer here called topic 2 line and topic 1 line. Topic 2 line is just a fast way to reference the fact that I have 2 lines. In other words, I have kind of a title and then a subtitle, like the main title here, subtitle here. Maybe on some occasions I only have one topic, like maybe we're talking about DLC or microtransactions. Then I will click this little eyeball, which will delete, not really delete permanently, just, you know, have it hide away. And then I will check this one, you know, click this eyeball on, which allows me to only do kind of one line. It's just a really quick way to go back and forth between kind of a title and a subtitle. And then obviously here I would put DLC or microtransactions or whatever. So let's go ahead and click off of this layer and click back onto that one. And we've got that taken care of. And then you have your show type media, which is basically just the same image that I used for the thumbnail. I basically just reused that, and then I have this layer that I have masked away, which if you hit your mask button right here, I'm not sure how good this is going to show up, but there is a yellow line that is running on the border here. Let me see if I can let you guys see this. If I hit M, I can bring up all of my mask properties. And let me see if I can show you guys. Like if I do my expansion, like right now it's at a -5, which is what's giving me that border. There's my autosave kicking in. If I go ahead and decrease that, you can see that it basically widens my border. And then obviously I can take it back to -5. and get my small border back. So that's kind of what a mask does. If I were to take this mask off by deleting it, it's basically just a solid layer. It's just like a big block, and you get that by hitting layer, new, solid. So I just created a blue solid and then got rid of it using my mask and created my border. And because this is a black solid, anytime you create a solid in After Effects, you basically can put it in a solid folder. So this is all the solids that I've had to create for this particular project. You can see them all right there. And you know, you can just store them away inside of their own folder, which keeps it nice and neat. So this is a black solid, just happens to be the 19th one I created, and that is the title. Now obviously I could name that, I could call it frame. I could hit enter and call it border if I wanted to, and then click away and it would stay. But you know, typically with solids, I don't really worry about naming them that much. It's kind of just a formality. Unless I'm working on a super big project or a project that I want a client to be able to go in and edit himself, then he may want that named. But typically for me, I don't really name them. All right, and now we'll head over here to the VD show type, which is the video display show type. That's what I call my overlays, by the way, guys. I don't call them overlays, I call them video displays because they're kind of a moving you know, a moving part of the video. I think overlays is more or less, in my opinion, more like a still image. That's why I call mine video display. So we'll click on VD show type. Now you can see right here that it's the same image, but it looks a bit distorted. Now the reason why it looks distorted, and if I pan out here, you can see that the image is super wide. And that's because when I made this part of the graphics package, I did not anticipate the width that it really needed to be when I put it on the video display. So to counter that, I just scaled the image so that when I did put it inside of the video display, it would fit perfectly. And I'll show you that when we get into the video display. But typically with these, it just ends up being a very wide image, and I just have to scale it to fit. All right, now we'll click over on today's show. You can see here that I just have a block, and what happens is this block is going to get rendered 7 times over the course of the project, and then I'm just going to be allowed to delete the 6 blocks that do not apply to the date that we're currently on. So like if we click on the days composition, you can see that we have 7 days, of which only 1 of them are highlighted. Now you can see here that this is a straight block, or a rectangle if you will. It's not cut out or anything, but if you look right here, it is cut out, and that's because the numbers go right behind that. You see what I'm saying? And so what happens is I basically applied a mask to all of these layers, so no matter which one I turn on, they all appear the same. And even if I were to come in here and make this Darksiders, then if I come over here to days, they will all be Darksiders. You see what I'm saying? And then all I have to do is make sure that I click the right day, which should be the 4th, because this is basically Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. That's kind of how my week goes with this particular show. So let's go back into today's show's comp and make sure we click on blue, because when I'm doing these behind the scenes, I typically will just have it that blue color. I didn't really want to go through and do like an After Effects one and a Sony Vegas one because the imaging was just a little bit too tricky for me to find. So I just stuck with the blue. And now we'll get into the outro feature. So this is my outro feature right now, is my road to completion for the Order 1886. And obviously what I have is just a video that plays in the background, and then you have your featured text, which is right here. You guys, and this is my outro screen. So this particular video right here always plays on the left. You see what I'm saying? Then I have my road to completion for the Order 1886. Obviously, if I clicked on this layer twice, I could change that to, you know, whatever, right? Click away, Control Z, brings it back. And then featured playlist, if I click on the Shy Guy, there's the featured playlist if I ever wanted to switch that. But because I don't, you guys know I like to get rid of any of the clutter. So I just have the actual text for the feature. And then I have the same thing going on here with the outro. This is the one for yesterday. You can see that we have 46 and 47. So we're gonna go up here and click on our source panel, and we're gonna go and find our video from yesterday. So we're gonna go to YouTube, and we're gonna go to 48, import it. It's gonna take a second. And then what you can do is you can hit Alt. Let me click away, right click. So this is not highlighted. You can click Alt and actually click on the file that you want to replace. And then you can actually replace it by letting off of Alt and replacing it. Then if you hit your caps lock, you'll be able to see that the image changed. So that's all I do is whatever video uploaded the previous day, I just drop it in, you know, do my alt click, replace it, and I'm good to go. And then obviously we need to go in and apply the text, right? Let me go ahead and hit up this transparency key so maybe you guys can see that a bit better. And obviously we did, it was episode 3, and we did Audacity. And sorry guys, I have to reach around my microphone here. Boom. So there we go, Audacity. And then we go to our last portion of our outro, which is the outro spotlight. Yesterday we had the new Assassin's Creed trailer, and I've actually already picked one out for today. So let's head over to good old Google Chrome and see if we can find it. All right, now once that's downloaded, I basically just close that out, and then I will come here and copy the title. I'll hit Control C, which is quick copy. Copy the title, come back into After Effects, and I will basically Control V. So that gives me the title. That makes sure that, you know, the people know exactly what the title is. So, you know, if they do travel there on YouTube, they'll know, hey, I'm in the right spot. Gives you an idea of what the video is going to be about. And then go back over to outro spot. Obviously, we want to replace this Assassin's Creed trailer. We're going to double click and bring in what we downloaded. Takes only a second. And then we're going to go ahead and bring that over and replace. Let off the mouse button first, then hit Alt. You can see that it's kind of not on the screen. So I can always come up here and right click, go to transform, and then hit fit to comp, or Control Alt F, whichever one you prefer. And that allows it to kind of fit perfectly inside of that box. And that pretty much wraps up the outro. Now let's go ahead and head over to the sub count. This is obviously how many subscribers we have for that particular day that the dose is going up. And the way that I find this out is I go back to good old Google Chrome, and I will click on subscribers. Typically it's, most of the time I have it pulled up, to be honest with you, but if I don't, it's always right there under new subs. And as soon as I click it, it'll tell me that between yesterday and today, we've jumped almost 10 subscribers, which is pretty cool. We have 6,044, and I'll basically just go ahead and fill that number in, double click. And sorry guys, I'm having to look around my microphone. 1,044, and that gives us the number of people that we have in our community as of the day I'm doing that particular dose. Now we get into the video display lower third. So obviously, because this is kind of a tutorial, I just have general footage right here. Let me go ahead and increase this a bit for you guys so you can see. You can see in the background I have watching, right? And it's kind of dim and in that gray color. And then I have in front general footage. So that's kind of what you're watching. Now, if I was doing like a Bloodborne video or something like that, then this would say Bloodborne or Darksiders 2 or whatever I'm talking about. But for today, because we're doing a tutorial, it just says general footage. Then if we click over here, you can see that the last time I did a show, which I know these dates are off, guys, and that's because we're catching up on daily doses, but it was Tuesday, February the 17th. That was the date for that particular dose. Obviously, we want to switch that and make it Wednesday. Wednesday. And that would be February the 18th, 2015. All right, and now we're gonna head over here to our sub of the day. You guys know that I will shout out one sub every single day in the order that you subscribe to the channel. And the way that I know this is because it up here, I think I might need to go, right, sub of the day. Every time you guys subscribe to my channel, it sends me an email. You see what I'm saying? In the order that you subscribe. And I have it in a special folder. See right here under subscribers. And that way I know that I will eventually shout out every single person that's ever subscribed. You see what I'm saying? So if I scroll down, it's basically the one that's next. So you can see right there, RL Studios 224. Bam. He was a subscriber of the day yesterday. And then now we are on to that plumber. My man. Or girl, not sure. Control C. And we're just going to Control V. Bam, there we go. That lets you guys know that that was the subscriber of the day for, this particular day. And then every day that follows, there'll be a new subscriber. All right, and next up is going to be the fun fact of the day. This is something I really like doing because this is really for the people who truly watch the Daily Dose every day and who's really paying attention to everything I'm putting up. This is always a fun fact about me that maybe you didn't know, or a fun fact about my life, or just an experience I've had. And on yesterday's video, it says the longest audio I've ever had to record for the Daily Dose was 57 minutes. The final video was only 9 minutes long. So I basically filmed 57 minutes of audio just to get 9 minutes out. And that's obviously that is the price you pay for doing YouTube videos and really taking pride in your work. So let's see if we can get another cool fun fact for today. All right, so I'm gonna attempt to do this while I reach around my keyboard. This ought to be interesting. When I was a kid, I hated, and I'm gonna spell this really funny because a lot of you guys know that I use this word a lot in my videos. I'm gonna spell it cheese, because you guys know that I say this a lot in my videos. You know what I mean? Oh, everybody get cheese. I'm about to cheese these enemies. So when I was a kid, I hated cheese, right? And I love cheese now. I love pizza with extra cheese and Velveeta and macaroni and cheese. But when I was a kid, I didn't like the way it looked, and I did not like the way it tasted. All right, and then we're gonna go to the next section of our VD lower thirds right here, and that's the question of the day. And I typically have been running this same question: do you like watching these types of videos? If so, would you like me to make more of them? But most of the time, this will pertain to the topic at hand. If I'm talking about DLC, I might say, hey, what do you think about DLC or microtransactions? You know, do you think microtransactions are the future? And that kind of gives us something that we can talk about in the comments, right? It kind of spurs on an interaction in the comments, and you know I'm big in the comments talking to you guys. So obviously you can talk about whatever you want, but you know, if you don't know what to talk about, you know, just answer that question and it kind of gets the ball rolling. And then last but not least is the most recent subscribers to the channel. This is kind of like my welcome to the channel. Obviously I can't personally talk to every single person who subscribes to the channel, but what I often do is I'll come up here to this same tab, subscribers, and you can see here that it tells me, hey, 12 hours ago, this particular person subscribed, 15, 17, 20. What I will do is I will grab as many of these people off the top as I possibly can that will fit into this area, and I will basically let them know, hey, welcome to Square One Games. We're glad you're here. Now, typically what I'll do to get these names in here, for whatever reason, I find that if I try to Control-C the names in here and paste them straight into After Effects, it doesn't really work correctly. So what I'll do is I will copy, Control-C, and then I'll just minimize or open up another. Typically, I'll just open up whatever's on my desktop. Like these are my Bloodborne tags. And then I'll just hit Control-V and do a little comma. And then I'll just do that as many times as it takes to get as many of these names up there that I possibly can. Control-V. And this can take a second, but this is what I do on every single video. Let's see, bam, Control-V. Usually it's about 6 names, typically. Depends on how long the names are. See if we can get 2 more in there. I just normally will do 6 and then see how close we are. So you can see how meticulous doing this show is. There's a lot that goes into it, man. A lot of work goes into these shows. Okay, and then I will copy all of those, Control-C, minimize everything again, go back in the After Effects, double click and Control-V. So I probably have room for one more. So let's see if we can slide somebody else in here right quick. Maybe. Now hopefully it'll go in there since it's just one name. Yes. So you see this little line right here is a ruler that I've made, and this lets me know that if I go past this line, I'm in the dead zone and it won't show up on the actual final portion of the video display. So I just have to make sure that all the names fit before I get to this blue line, and I'm good to go. All right, and then if we scroll over right here, we can see that we have one called the comment of the day. This was the last one that I did. It was actually by L1 Gaming, and it says, I forget what we were talking about, but this was hilarious. It said, put him on house arrest, blow off both kneecaps, and then remove all pieces of furniture from his house, except the upper cabinets in his kitchen and a standing desk. Fair. I forget the topic we were talking about, but that was on there. And I haven't done the comment of the day in a while because we're so far behind on daily doses. That's just one more thing I have to do to get the show up, and so I tend to skip it just so we can get caught up. But once we get caught up, I plan on doing these again. Basically what I do is I just read the comments from the previous days and find one that's funny. You guys can put in, you know, silly things, you know, fun things. You could put in hypothetical things. You could put in stuff like this. It could be random. It could be about the topic we talked about. It does not matter. And I just pick it and then read it right before the credits at the end of the show. All right, and then we'll come over here to credits. And typically, because this is just a tutorial, I just say thanks for watching. But most of the time, because I have gameplay footage and stuff like that in the background, you'll see something that looks very similar to this. It'll be, I don't know if you guys can, yeah, you can see that. It'll say game, obviously the name of the game, the developer of the game, the publisher, and then when the game came out. You see what I mean? Sometimes it'll say TBA, for to be announced. Like when I did Uncharted 4, that Daily Dose topic, we didn't know a date. We still don't know a date, I don't think. It just said TBA. But because I'm just doing like a tutorial, I just want it to say, thanks for watching. All right, and then if we come over here, we can see that we have transition. Now you can see that these are red and these are yellow. And the yellow just lets me know that this is something else I have to render out. So all of these ones in red, I don't really have to render out. It's just the ones in yellow. And then obviously the thumbnail, which I think I just left it red, I believe. Yeah, because I kind of know that. Transition, this is obviously blue, which is the color of our source color. So I don't have to adjust that. It changes automatically. So we're gonna go ahead and hit composition. We're gonna hit pre-render. And we're gonna hit custom. We're gonna change this to QuickTime. And then we're gonna hit OK. Transition 1, and save. Then we're gonna come over here to credits. This is obviously my credits. I'm gonna hit composition, pre-render, same thing, custom. And there's a quicker way to do this, but I'm trying to go through all the steps for you guys. There is a faster way to do this, but just so you see. And then we're gonna save that out as credits. And then we're gonna save this last one out. Now this is our render composition. So this is the actual video display. So every single one of these individual compositions makes up this final render composition. And let me just show you how big this is. So if I minimize this window and I hit my shy guy, you can see that it is comprised of a ton of different layers. This is basically the entire edit right here. Okay, and what I've got to do is render this out and then bring it into Sony Vegas and make even more edits so that it looks and flows correctly. Now you can see when I hit my Shy Guy switch, the only thing I really need on a daily basis, because I'm done with the template, is my dates. That's really the only thing that I have to change, consistently, and then obviously the month, which is why those are the only things that are available to me right now. But obviously when I was making the template, I had to do all this work. Now this is work that I only have to do one time. So once I get it set up, I'm good to go. But this took me days to be able to just fix and make sure the timing was right and the loops were correct. And we'll get into loops when we get into Sony Vegas. That's how I create my animations. I run them off of loops. You see what I'm saying? But it took me a long time to get this down. But once you get it down, it's really not that bad. You can still see that it's very detailed, the process, but it's a whole lot easier than having to do this every single time. Now, the cool thing about this, let's get into Shy Guy this stuff again. The good thing about this is that it gives you one last opportunity to check things out before you hit your final, before you decide you want to render it. There's my autosave again. I love autosaving. The last thing you want to do is spend 20 or 30 minutes rendering out these files just to find a mistake. Maybe the date is wrong, which happens to me all the time because I'm usually in a rush to get these things done. And what I can do is I can just scroll back to the beginning of the timeline. There's my Square One Games Presents. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in a bit so it doesn't go too fast. And I can just kind of keep scrolling through to make sure, like the Daily Dose, make sure the number's correct, the number's correct, episode 49. I can keep scrolling. There's a title comp, behind the scenes look at the Daily Dose, make sure we're episode 4, After Effects. There's the blue box you guys saw earlier with the little dude looking at his computer. Keep going. That goes away. And then this is the animation where the line comes down. You see what I'm saying? The line comes down and then everything starts to kind of come through. All the stuff shows up. All this stuff is on preset animations that I have in there. And then you have your lower third, there's general footage. Make sure everything is spelled correctly. You know, there have been misspellings in some of these videos. Some of you guys catch them, and that's the ones I know are really paying attention to the show. Just make sure that everything is the way that I want it. It just gives me one last chance to kind of scrub through. Now, it looks like that this is a black image. It looks like, man, you know, wait, you got to get rid of that black image because that's where my video has to go. What this really is, if I hit this transparency switch, is there's really nothing there. You see what I'm saying? That anything that has the checkered boxes right there, that means that it's transparent. There's really nothing there, even though it looks like there is something there. And anytime that you see transparency, that is where I'm going to put the video at. So what you see here, this white background with the February and all that kind of stuff, that's going to go over the top of the video when we get into Sony Vegas, thus creating the quote unquote overlay, or in my case, the video display. Now, once I think I have everything exactly the way that I want it, I basically just hit the render queue. Now, the good thing about my workflow is I basically just work from left to right. And I'm just clicking on them and changing the stuff that I need to change, and then making sure that I'm constantly, like even with my thumbnail, making sure that I'm going ahead and setting it up inside of my render queue so that when I finally get to the end and everything's in the render queue, I don't have to go back. You see what I'm saying? Everything is ready to go for me inside of the render queue, and I'm good to go. Now, the last thing I want to render is the actual render comp. So we're going to hit composition, pre-render, custom, QuickTime. The reason why I do QuickTime is because it allows you to do your colors, which is RGB, and then the alpha, which gives me the transparency. If you save it out as a different kind of format, you're probably going to get, you're not going to get the transparency that you need when you do the video overlay. And some editing suites don't even allow you to pull in transparency, which is kind of crazy, but they don't. In fact, when we first started doing this YouTube channel, we were working with, I think it was Corel Studio. Really, I mean, it's not a bad editing software for what we had at the time, but it didn't really allow us to do transparency that well. I had to come in here and do a lot of masking and a lot of crazy stuff to get it to work. But we made it happen. But as soon as I got Sony Vegas, I can, you know, click a couple of buttons and it gives me that transparency. But it has to be saved out as QuickTime. So I'll make sure I hit OK. And then we're going to again make sure it goes inside of 49's folder, hit save. And then now we're just going to render this thing out. Now I'm going to again keep track. I'm not going to show all of this, but I will keep track of how long it takes to render this thing out. I can give you a little tip though. When you render out files in After Effects, and this is something I do to save time, if I were to just hit render right now, obviously it would render. But what's going to happen is there's going to be a yellow bar that keeps going right here showing my progress. Obviously when it gets to the end at 100%, my file is good. The problem is that it's going to also be rendering and showing you the render up here, meaning the whole thing is going to be animating up here, right? Which is going to take up some of your rendering process. It's going to basically kill your rendering time. So one way you can avoid that is you hit caps, your caps lock button, and I'll show you that right here. When you hit render, you can see that it shows the thumbnail, it shows the transition, but nothing's moving up here. And that's because my caps lock button is down right now. If my caps lock button was up, then you would see all the animations and this yellow bar would be going a whole lot slower. So it's a great way to kind of speed up how fast you're able to render. Now, granted, I've done a lot of upgrading to my PC over the last couple of weeks, so I'm rendering a whole lot quicker right now. When I upgrade again, I'm getting another processor, I'm getting more RAM, so I'll be able to render a whole lot quicker. And that's where it just comes down to making sure that you're constantly trying to upgrade your PC. You know what I mean? Trying to get the best render times possible, because really a big hassle when it comes to doing YouTube is waiting on your computer to render out things. I mean, like some of these Bloodborne videos that I'm doing for you guys are taking me 1.5 to 2 hours to render a 30-minute episode. And that's because I finally made the jump to 1080p, 60 frames a second, all that good stuff. I'm putting on a ton of video effects and stuff like that, and so it just takes forever. So the more I can put into my PC, the better off I'll be, and that's really the only tip I can give you there. You can see that we started off at like 25 minutes. We're already down to 15 minutes, and this will keep dropping consistently. It won't really be an actual 15 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and let this render out. Then we're going to touch base again right before we end this video. Right now we're at 5:56 p.m. We'll see how long it takes, and I'll meet you guys on the other side. All right, guys, it just finished up, so it's about 6:13. So like I said, when I first started this render, it was about 26 or 27 minutes, so it didn't quite take that long. It took roughly, I guess, about 18 minutes if you look at it, because I think we're at 6:56, give or take. So like I said, normally I just hop in the shower, maybe I'll go eat. By the time I come back, things are good. So it's not that long. I mean, last year's, I think season 1 of the Daily Dose, the render times on that particular graphics package was a little bit over an hour every single day. Think about that. It took me an hour just to render out the graphics. If I messed up, it was another hour. That's not counting rendering it in Sony Vegas and then, you know, using Handbrake, which I didn't use Handbrake in season 1, but now I do, and then uploading it to YouTube. So you can see how long it takes to put on a show like this. Now in season 2, it took about 35 minutes. Now obviously I've got it down to less than 20. And then as I upgrade my PC, it gets even quicker. Now the reason why it's less this time around, obviously yes, because I've upgraded my PC, that helps, but I've also made the complexity of the graphics, I guess, not as harsh, if you will. I made it, I mean, it still looks complex, and it very much is. I mean, you can see how many compositions we have to go through to be able to get the final look, but there are ways in After Effects to reduce the render times and stuff like that, which is something I've learned over the years, and so that helps. And so my goal from now on with the Daily Dose in season 4, when we finally hit season 4, is to try to get the render time less than 20 minutes, and I think I will be good to go. That pretty much wraps it up for After Effects, guys. If you got any questions or comments, leave them below. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you guys. On tomorrow's show, we're going to be taking the graphics, obviously not this set of graphics, because that's what you saw today, but it'll be episode 50's graphics. I will pre-make that, and then we're going to take those graphics into Sony Vegas. We're going to pull the audio that we did yesterday into Sony Vegas, and we're going to pull the screen capture that we did on episode 1 with the Elgato Game Capture HD, or I guess that was episode 2. And we're going to pull that in, and we're going to see all the elements come together to make our final video. That'll be episode 50. It'll be Sony Vegas. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.